we constantly have to battle against ourselves, right? And it can be really annoying because it's like you have this little voice in your head that second guesses everything you do. And so why do we have negative thoughts? And what can we do to stop them from happening is the big question, right? You're listening to episode 108 of the MomTalks with Christa podcast. Hi guys, I hope you're having a great week so far. Thank you for joining me this week. There's so much I want to say today. I don't know if anything else is new. I just kind of talk all the time in the beginning. But anyways, today is a solo episode, so there's no guest today. It's just yours truly. We're talking about negative thoughts and tips to reprogram your brain. This is one of my favorite topics to cover. I'll get to that in just a second. It is a big week, guys. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving personally. It's ever since I was a kid, it was like my favorite holiday. Yes, I love Christmas too. It's a lot of fun, but Thanksgiving, I don't know why. I just now I'm choking up over it. No, not really. I'm just losing my voice. But no, Thanksgiving has just always been something I've always, looked forward to. Obviously the food's great, but family's great. And then as I get older, it's just a time to reflect, really look at it differently as gratitude week. And I just want to take a minute and thank you guys all for being here, for listening to this show, and more importantly, being a part of this community. Sometimes we underestimate the impact we make and the impact we can have on other people. And just sending a simple, like, you got this, or encouraging another mom, or listening to her story, letting her vent to you, can really change her day. This has just been so important to me. This community is so important to me. And it really goes back to that quote of like, be the change you wish you could see. And I feel like we heard that all the time growing up, but it's like really hitting me now. And it's like, sometimes we have to be that voice, or we have to be that change that we want to see. We are called to make that change. And so I feel like if we're like, I really want to be supported in my motherhood journey, I wish this was different. Let's be that change. Let's do it for another mom and pass it on. And let's see what impact we can make in other moms' lives. I'm just so grateful to have this community. And I talk about it all the time, but especially now with, at the time of recording, I'm 23 weeks pregnant. And so I'm going through it with this whole new lens and perspective. And I just feel so confident and excited that I'm in great hands. I've got this great community surrounding me. And I just feel like so excited because, if I have like a question or I need some support, you guys are there. And so I hope you all feel that same way when it comes to this community, that you have this judgment-free support, this tribe around you. I'm just feeling really grateful. Yeah, I know that was long-winded, but thank you. So that's what I got for Thanksgiving week. I just really hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. And whether you celebrate big or small, remember to set some time aside for you to just breathe. Take a minute, maybe think about your own gratitude. And it doesn't have to be like the typical, like, oh, I'm grateful for my family and friends and my house. You can think like deeper, or just think about like your abilities. Like, I'm grateful that like my kids are healthy. I'm grateful that this morning I was able to stretch this morning. I'm grateful that I have a kitchen to cook a meal in, whatever it looks like for you. If you want to be a little more deeper and specific, I think being deeper and more intentional in our gratitude helps us feel it more, when we're living it. In that, remembering to breathe and taking a minute for yourself. I know sometimes we don't always have a minute. If you can find that minute and hold on to it. If the holidays are overwhelming for you, which it is for a lot of people, remember it's perfectly okay to set boundaries. It doesn't make you mean. It doesn't make you needy. It doesn't make you a bad person. I know we hear these things as people pleasers. We're like, I can't set boundaries. That's telling someone no, but you will be so much more enjoyable. You will be happy. You will be just freer by setting boundaries. So if you need to set boundaries, if the thought of holidays coming up brings you a lot of anxiety, think of what boundaries you need to set and what makes sense for your family. And get on the same page with your partner. And that's something that we hear time and time again, is like there could be this conflict because of if it's a family thing, like your partner's family or your family or their friends and your friends, make sure you're on the same page first, because you have started this new family right here, right? This is your unit. And so make sure you're on the same page. Talk about what you want your day to look like, what it should look like, what support you might need. Maybe it's really stressful for you to bring the kids to someone else's house, and you're like, I'm going to need your support more than ever that day. So when I feed baby one, I'm going to need you to take baby two to, whatever, different things like that. So making sure you have clear idea for what you want your day to look like. And that's okay. Just remember, it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. If even that day you're like, this is too overwhelming, protect your mental health first. If it's too much for your mental health and you need a break, take a break. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. That's all I got about that. I just hope you guys have a great day, whatever it entails, and you find time to find some inner peace and gratitude. Okay, so important dates coming up. Our next virtual Facebook room is Wednesday, December 7th. We are talking all about gratitude and how to rewire your brain. So you'll notice we have a similar topic today, if not the same thing, but it's a really good topic to constantly do because it's a good reminder, and it's different audiences as well. You have to be a part of our Facebook community to join this Facebook or this virtual room. So if you haven't joined yet, click the link in the show notes. You can join our group and then you'll see it under events. And it's always a good time. We have a great discussion. It's real time. If you're camera shy, turn your camera off. You don't have to say anything, but it is a little more personable than a peanut pod, for example. A peanut pod does get really personal, but it's camera off. We're just on our phones. I talk for majority of it. Facebook room, it is more face-to-face. We do interact a little bit more. So it's just kind of what level you're looking at. But I have to say, I've seen so much growth within our Facebook community as well. Just some of the members that maybe at first this was like way out of their comfort zone. And believe me, it was for me too. But they're now like looking forward to it every week. And they'll message me and say like, when's the next one? And it's really cool just to see. So I encourage you to join us. Our next Peanut Pod is December 1st. We are talking about stress management tips during the holidays. So very similar to our last one, we talked about tips for anxiety. This is gonna be a little bit different, stress management tips. And we're gonna just bring it and share what we got, people. So we got that for you. All right, into today's episode, like I said, this is a similar topic. We're talking all about negative thoughts and how to reprogram your brain. This is a clip from a recent Peanut Pod I did. And this is one of my favorite topics because I think if we are a negative person or we grew up around negative people, we tend to think that's the only way to think, that we're just like looking out for ourselves. When in reality, there's so much we can do to change that thought process. There's a lot to do with perspective, how we're viewing things, and how we take care of ourselves. Really, it's how we take care of ourselves in the morning can be a big indicator of how our day is going to look. It goes back to like, if you're having a bad day and you spill like water, you like freak out over, I'm speaking personal experience. Like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? Nothing can go right. Woe is me, blah, 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 blah. But if it's a day where you're like, the sun is shining, oh my gosh, it's beautiful out, like, and your perspective changes and you've already like done these things to kind of reprogram your brain, and you spill water, you're like, it's no big deal. It's just water. It's not going to stain anything. Just clean it right up. It'll dry. It's fine. No big deal. And so that's kind of like my beginning indication of how we can reprogram our brain. As you're listening, I hope you can pick up on something that will help you in the future, maybe on a negative day, or even just addressing, because sometimes we don't realize we're negative. Like I never realized for a while, like there were some days I would be so like my inner voice would be so negative to myself. I'd be like, you're so dumb. Like, why are you doing this? And so just even recognizing like, oh, maybe I shouldn't talk to myself like that. Especially if we have small ones around, they pick up on that and they think like, oh, well, if she's dumb for doing that, maybe I'm dumb too. And so I think it's really important to pick up on these things when we have small children so they can learn from how we talk kindly to ourselves. So that's all I got about that. Here it is. Enjoy. I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, but I will join you at the very end for our Mom Tales of the week. Enjoy. Today, we are talking about negative thoughts and tips to reprogram your brain. And I have talked about this similarly before, but I think it can't hurt to talk about again, because it's one of those things where, and you'll hear me say this time and time again, where making a choice, like saying, oh, I'm going to love myself more, or I'm going to be more positive, or I'm going to do things for myself. It's not a one decision and then the rest of your life, you're like, yeah, I've got it. This is easy. It's perfect. So we need reminders, and we need to, go through the ebbs and flows of reminding ourselves that it's okay to have those days where we're not really feeling very positive. We might have those days where we've tried everything and it's just going to be a negative day, and that's okay. So this is just to kind of give you those tips and tricks, and we can kind of work through some things. If anyone has any questions, we can do that at the end, or of course, if anything comes up before that, feel free to request a talk. So if you're dealing with negative thoughts, who here deals with negative thoughts? You don't have to say anything, but you can react. You can send like a heart or a thumbs up if you want. I'm sure we all have at some point or another. We constantly have to battle against ourselves, right? And it can be really annoying, because it's like you have this little voice in your head that second guesses everything you do. And so why do we have negative thoughts, and what can we do to stop them from happening is the big question, right? So I kind of looked into this a little bit, and some theorists believe that negative thoughts are evolutionary, that in the ancient human history, we needed to have negative thoughts because it was a way to protect ourselves and our families. And at those times, it was more of a matter of life and death, so we're planning ahead for the worst case scenario so we can, plan for something and protect our family, as opposed to now. Yes, there are circumstances where we should think, okay, what could happen if blah, 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 or if I go here, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm talking about today is those negative thoughts that creep in throughout the day on things that pertain to ourselves, to pertain to how good of a job we're doing at, being a mom, a friend, a sister, whatever. And so we have to ask ourselves, where does this negative thought come from? So of course, these are just some examples, but negative thoughts can come from our upbringing. It can come from certain life events that maybe have made an impact into why we think negatively or currently think negative. Maybe something happened, or someone treated you poorly and it caused you to not trust people. Okay, so maybe it's your brain trying to protect yourself. Like, oh, like she probably didn't mean to say that because she actually meant this, So our mind kind of goes in these circles. Or you might not have any clue why you have negative thoughts. Maybe you held on to something someone told you years ago and you don't even realize it. So there are a lot of different places that we can pick up negative thoughts, and it's not always easy to pinpoint. But what is better about that, or what's an angle to look at it that way, is we can easily, I don't know if easy is the right word, but with certain steps and being more aware of it, we can kind of look the other way. We can retrain our brain to get rid of those negative thoughts. So how can we retrain our brain and start to think more positively? Because we no longer have to think these negative thoughts as a means for survival, right? Like I said, yes, there's going to be certain circumstances we're going to want to think ahead of things or plan things. But thinking negatively throughout the day, every single day, doesn't bring us any good. It doesn't allow us to be our best selves. It doesn't allow us to feel good throughout the day. So we have to take control and show our brain who's boss. So this is my biggest tip for people dealing with negative thoughts each day. And if you've listened to my pods before, I've talked something similarly about this before, but we're going to kind of twist it slightly just for this. I talk a lot about journaling and the benefits of journaling throughout your day and how it can really improve checking in with yourself, how you feel about things. Because I think so many times we move along with the hustle and bustle that we forget to just stop and take a breath and say, like, okay, you're surviving, you're doing a good job today. This is how I feel today, or asking yourself those questions. And so when it comes to negative thoughts, my biggest thing is find a time every day that you can write down 3 things that went well that day. And I personally recommend either first thing in the morning, so you can write about the previous day, or you can write it about at bedtime, right before you go to bed, and write it about that day. And now, whether it's something you personally did, something you experienced, or something you felt, it doesn't matter. Just 3 things. So you could say, I got some fresh air on my walk today. On my drive to work, I listened to a really cool podcast. I wore a new sweater today. So whatever it is, or it could be my baby smiled at me today. It could be my mom helped me with the dishes today. Whatever is making you smile that day. And there's going to be some days where this is going to be a piece of cake and you're going to be like, oh, 3 things, done. Like, that's awesome. And there's going to be other days where 3 things is going to seem like the hardest thing. But here's the thing about those hard days is that's allowing you to become more self-aware about what's going on. So in those days where it's really hard, your brain is going to automatically try to search harder. So if it's one of those really rough days, maybe you woke up late, maybe the baby's been crying all morning, maybe you can't get to wherever you need to be on time. It's one of those days, everything just seems off. And you're like, my brain's only thinking of the negative things. The more we train ourselves to find 3 things, the harder it's going to work to find those things. So let's say it's a really hard day, and your positive thing for that day might be the sun is shining. Okay, write that down. I have air in my lungs. Okay, write that down. I could say I enjoyed a really good granola bar on the way to work. Whatever it is, things that we might tend to take for granted or we don't think about because it just happens normally. Like, okay, there's the sun, cool. Or, okay, I can breathe. Yep. Awesome. We don't really think about it as like this amazing thing. But when we're forced to think of 3 things each morning or night, our mind works a little bit harder. And if you're really struggling to write down those 3 things, you can turn it into a gratitude or being proud of how you handle the situation or growth you noticed. So you can be like, oh, normally I would have yelled at my kid when he couldn't put his shoes on quick enough. Today, I just took a deep breath and I said, it's okay, you got it. And I left the room and I took a deep breath. So like noticing those moments of growth is a great thing to write down as well. Now, these might seem like little acts, right? Kind of small, right? So on their own, they can seem small and they can seem like they're not going to do a whole lot. But let me tell you, if you do this every day, the consistency is going to help retrain your brain so you naturally start seeing the bigger picture. You start to see the positive, and you're not microscoping down to something that's so like nitty-gritty, something that's wrong. I guess I should say magnifying glass. You're not like magnifying glass, something that's a negative thing and just like weighing on you your whole day. You're not just staring at it, being like, oh, this day sucks because of this thing. Your brain is going to more likely see the positive and see the good things you're doing and that you're doing a good job. And those small little quote unquote bad things or mistakes don't matter in the long run. As you continue to do this, you're going to notice throughout the day, your brain is going to start noticing things. Because you're like, if I don't have 3 things to write by the end of the day, I'm going to be stumped. I'm going to be sitting there like, what do I write today? So you're going to notice throughout your day. You're like, oh, I felt really cute in my outfit today. Or, oh, my boss really loved my presentation. Or the way my baby ran to me this morning made me smile. So you're just going to notice these things throughout your day and focus on that a little bit more, because you're almost going to think of it as like a to-do list at the end of the day, not a bad to-do list, but something that's kind of like fun to look forward to at the end of the day. And if you really stick to it, you will find these small changes. Now, I want you guys to think of a positive like affirmation kind of for the week. Think of something that you want to focus on and just commit to it for 1 week. Because I think it can be really hard to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, write down 3 things every day for the next 6 months. That can be very overwhelming. Even though the 3 things to write down won't take you long, or not always, some days it might, that's still a big commitment. So just tell yourself today, so it's Wednesday, tell yourself until next Tuesday, you're not going to miss a day. You're going to write down 3 things every single day. So as we're listening right now, think of things that already happened in your morning. Maybe it was one of those mornings where it seemed like everything went wrong, but I want you to think of what went right. What growth did you see in yourself? What things can you be grateful for this morning? What are you proud of? And I talked about this last week as well. So if you were here, it's going to sound familiar, but if you weren't, this is one of my favorite things to tell people as well. To add to that, this is the check-in thing that I kind of talked about earlier, how important it is to check in with yourself. So when you're doing these check-ins and writing the 3 things, I want you to also ask yourself how you're doing. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate how you feel. And this is your own scale. So it's not like when you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, how much pain is it? Is it 1 or is it 10? Like really, really bad, It's your own scale. So starting off, like if you're like, oh, I feel pretty good. Not the best I could feel. Okay, I'm going to say I'm 6.5 today. And then the next day, then you kind of rank based on the previous day. So I'm kind of putting like a 2 and 1 here, but that's checking in with yourself and retraining your brain. So if you have a journal, or if you have a phone with a like notes app, like an iPhone, I'm sure the other phones have it too. Open it up and write down my 3 things. And that's something too, convenience. If it's something that's really convenient, you're going to be more likely to do it. So even if you're, out and about and you're like, oh, I just thought of my 3 things, pull out your phone and write it down. Something we started doing at my job was, and this was 4 years ago now, when we would sit in our morning meeting, we would always say a personal win. And at first it was like, oh, what's my personal win? Like, what does that even mean? How do I do that? And eventually you'd start hearing what other people would say. And then you would say something like, oh, I went on a walk this morning. It was really nice. Or, oh, I got to hang out with my nieces yesterday. Or, oh, I read this new book that was really good. But it was less about that moment. And it was more about how it trained my brain to think throughout the day, what is my win today? How am I succeeding today? And now success means different things to everyone, right? We're told a lot of times in society that success is dollar signs only. But I want to take that whole thing away. What does success mean to you in this particular day? Did you have alone time that you don't normally have? Does that make you happy? Did you have a good day at your job? Did your baby go down for their nap without crying through it? Did you get to catch up with a friend? And maybe some of those days, your success is that you got to walk outside and take a deep breath, and you got to be in nature for a little bit. So ask yourself what it means to you. But finding those personal wins, those gratitudes, and those proud moments in your day is going to retrain and reprogram how you think about your day. Now, I always like to add this to show that it's different than, that positivity. Like, I don't think we need to be positive all the time. Like, I think it's very beneficial to be realistic, be positive about some things, but you can also be realistic. And so there are certain situations where you have to address it and you have to acknowledge what's really going on. But when it comes to our day-to-day, when you have that little voice that can be really annoying and telling you you're not doing a good job, or telling you to second guess everything you're doing, or telling you that someone's talking bad about you when they're actually not, that's when we need to work on retraining our brain and looking at the brighter side of things and looking at the things that we can be grateful for, the things that we did succeed in that day, our personal wins, and what makes us amazing. So I know this was a little bit shorter than I normally like to go, but I just feel like this is such a powerful thing. And I would love for you guys to take this with you and run with it. Open up that notes app or get a journal and devote it to this 3 things. So if you're anything like me, like at least I used to, I'd get a journal and I would start as one thing and then it would end up being another thing. So devote it just to it, or to open up a notes app in your phone and devote a page just to your 3 things. And really commit to it for the next 7 days. And then you can see what happens, but see how you feel. Check in then at the end of the 7 days and say, wow, I normally hate driving to work, but this week I really enjoyed it. Because maybe this time you weren't rushing to get there. Maybe this time you noticed the trees you drove through, or maybe you noticed some of the houses, or whatever it is. Noticing those small things that make you smile, it really does work. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that clip from a recent Peanut Pod. Remember, the next one is December 1st, 1 p.m. Central. I hope you'll join me there. You download the Peanut app and you can join the MomTalks group in there, MomTalks with Christa group. And I always share, upcoming Peanut Pods in there. And then once you're in there, you can RSVP or something. And at the bottom, you'll see all of the other pods. If you need any help, let us know and we can assist you with it. But it's another really great community to be a part of. All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the week. And I thought we'd read some funny ones. I just got a few this week. Tell us your funniest pregnancy story. Maybe I'll think of one too. Actually, I've got some. Okay. All right. Number 1. So I'm a server and I worked up until the week before I gave birth, 37 weeks. Around week 35, I was so big, but I felt so great and loved working as my husband was on deployment and I wanted to be out of the house. So when I was 35 weeks to the date, I had a group of old people at one of my tables. They asked me all sorts of questions. One being, why is your husband making you work while you're this pregnant? I laughed. I seriously thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. I tried explaining to them that I loved working and my job and my coworkers, and that I pretty much lived at work because the walking helped my pregnancy pains, and they were having none of it. They said things like, that's no man making you work like this. You should be at home in bed. Your husband should respect you more. Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is funny. Different generations are funny. That's probably one of the funniest things that ever happened. Okay, I have so much to say about this, but first, she has such an awesome perspective, because so many people could get easily defensive and mad about this. Me maybe being one of them. And so I think that she found it so funny and was just like, like this other generation. Like, oh my gosh, that's really funny because I don't know if I would respond the same way. But I think that's good for her. Okay, number 2. This girl says, and I'm keeping all these anonymous, by the way, because they're from our Facebook group. So I just like to read anonymously. I lost a bowl of ice cream while eating it once. Girl, I've lost a lot of things. I don't know if I've lost something while eating it, but I'm not judging because I've lost some, like, I'll bring like a snack over to the couch or something and I'll be like, wait, where did I put it? And it's literally like in my hand or it's like next to me or something. So I get that. Number 3, I cried because I thought my whole family hated me because no one was liking my posts on Facebook. Turns out I was the only one who could see my posts for 3 months. Ooh, those Facebook settings are kind of tricky sometimes. We don't always know what people can see and not. And that's pretty funny. I'm glad I'm glad it came out, like, someone like either brought it up or asked about it. So you didn't hold on to like all this resentment during your pregnancy and then, problem solved. Okay, next one. When my husband and I were on the last day of our honeymoon, we went 10 months after the wedding. We went out for lunch on Cocoa Beach Pier. I had a bad headache from our deep sea fishing trip earlier that morning. So we thought we'd get a bite to eat and that would help. With the headache, I obviously wasn't feeling the best. For some reason, the only thing I could eat at that time was pickles. So my husband asked the waitress if she could bring us a side of pickles and stated that I was 3 months pregnant. That night, we found out I was actually pregnant. I was 4 weeks at the time. Wait, so she didn't actually know she was pregnant. She just said it so that the waitress would bring them? That's actually pretty funny. I'm like responding in real time here, by the way. It was your body just telling you, like, girl, we need some pickles right now. That's awesome. All right, that's all I got for this week, guys. I could tell a funny story. I'll tell one really quick. So I am a very vivid dreamer. My whole life, I've been a very vivid dreamer. Like I'll wake up and I'll remember every detail that happened. I can read in my dreams. I can see colors. I can, see everything. I don't know, all that stuff. So recently I had a dream that part 1, I was able to like visualize my whole like delivery. And I saw the baby and like I saw like features of the baby and it was crazy. It was like real. So then part 2 of that dream, I was bringing the baby to see my family. And of course, it wasn't where my parents live currently. It was the house I grew up in. And I was at their house, but the baby was a bunny. And it was literally hopping around their living room like a bunny. It wasn't like I had the baby in my arms and it looked like a bunny. It was literally a bunny hopping around. And in my dream, I just remember being so confused. And I'm like on my phone, like Googling, like, how does this happen? Like I knew it was weird. And I'm like Googling, I'm like, can humans give birth to bunnies? Like, how does this happen? And in my dream, I could read Google searches and people were like, yeah, it's very common. If you live near bunny fields, bunnies can, you can somehow give birth to a bunny. And I remember being so disappointed because I was like, I went through all of this and it's only a that like I've told a lot of friends and really I've cracked them up because of how ridiculous my dreams are. But also I grew up having bunnies for pets. So in one dream analysis thing I read, it said that you sometimes tend to dream about a pet you had when you're pregnant because it's like your body's saying like you've taken care of things before and this might be a little bit different, but you know how to nurture or something. So I don't know. That was really funny though. And waking up was like funny, but it was also kind of a relief that I didn't give birth to a bunny because there'd be a lot of questions. All right, guys, that's all I have for you this week. Hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving week. Remember to take a break for yourself if you need it. Remember what you're grateful for and enjoy your day. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful for all of you. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of future episodes. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. See you next week.